Hey, so recently I appeared in a video by the Shredded Nerd called Halo is Genius, and Here's Why. I was a mission designer at Bungie during the Halo years, and I talked to the Shredded Nerd and gave my perspective on how we scripted the missions in Halo, how the AI works, etc. It's a great video. It's well researched. You should check it out. I'll put a link in the description. But unfortunately, my voice isn't always easy to hear or understand. And this is because at the time I was up in northern Japan, and the internet where I was at wasn't that great. So my voice is oftentimes hard to understand. It sort of fades in and out here and there, and I apologize for all that. But now I'm here to clear up any confusion. Maybe I'll speak to what I try to reiterate what I said, maybe expand on some of the stuff I said, and yeah. So yeah, let's dive into the relevant parts of that video. My introduction is around the 33-minute mark in the video. And first of all, what is this picture? This is an old picture from back in the Halo days. I hate this picture. It looks ridiculous. Anyway, I'm not going to focus on the picture, but I hate that picture. I think it was taken during a European press tour that we were doing for Halo Reach. I think it was 5 European countries in 5 days, and it sounds like it would be really glamorous, touring Europe and talking to the press about Halo Reach. This is right before Halo Reach released, but oh my God, it was a lot of work, and it actually wasn't fun. And I saw Europe from the taxi cab windows. That's what that was. So anyway, I was probably jet lagged and exhausted. And what is with my hair? My God. Anyway, sorry. Let's move on. So the problems start right around the 36-minute mark. My voice starts to really kind of cut out pretty bad around here.
As micro encounter design. You still have responsive firing points in both systems, but on condemns, the firing points were your primary sort of input as to how you build an encounter. Depending on where you put the firing points, some of them has visibility. What that meant was, as you moved around the environment, it would activate and deactivate these firing points or these AI points.
Okay, so right around here, my internet connection starts dropping out pretty bad. And it's right about the time that I start talking about the key differences of working at Monolith versus working at Bungie as a mission designer. And this part's actually kind of interesting, or at least it would be interesting if my voice didn't keep dropping out. I mentioned this concept of macro versus micro encounter design. I don't know if you can hear it, but that's what I'm saying. And the idea here is that Condemned and Fear, which use the same engine and AI systems, these games focused on a micro encounter design, where Halo would focus more on a macro encounter design approach. So this isn't actually official terminology, the macro and micro thing. It's just what I'm calling it. And the tools and processes reflected this. So let's look at an example from Condemned here. This is just one of the encounters in the first mission. I was the designer on this, so I can sort of talk about how it was set up. All right, very good. So let's back this up, and I'll sort of describe what's going on here. So when the player first enters this space here, I'm going to pause it right here. We see basically we have two AI in this scene, okay, two bad guys, and you have this one guy, which you can see on the screen, who's running out from this closet, whatever it is, and then you have one other AI that is behind this pillar. Now, the general idea, so this is a horror game, obviously, so you're always trying to mess with the player's mind. You're trying to always set them up with this suspenseful situation. In this case, the suspense comes from you show the player that there are two enemies in this space, and one of them just, leaves and takes off into the back room. So as you're fighting the second guy, that first guy is still in the back of the player's head. They know he's somewhere. He could come out at any minute, and now you've sort of triggered this sort of suspenseful moment for when is the player going to see this enemy again. Okay, but I think the part that I really want to talk about is this guy behind the pillar is hiding behind the pillar here, and this guy that's running out of the closet you can see on the screen. I think I just tell him like, hey, go to this AI point in the other room, and then the way that this guy behind the pillar is scripted, we'll sort of see him pop out here, right there. So what we did is we just set up as mission designers on Condemned, we just set up AI points around the space, and that drove everything. That is how these encounters were built. Okay, so for example, you would put this AI point right behind this pillar. There's probably it looks like maybe two or three AI points depending on the player's location throughout this space. But when you enter the space, there's certain logic attached to each AI point, and this logic is just, if I remember correctly, is just a cone that if the player occupies this cone that is pointed from the back of the pillar towards the doorway, the entrance to this room, if the player occupies that cone, the AI knows, oh, this is a valid AI point, and I should hide behind it, or I should, like occupy this AI point. And in this case, I can't remember what we called them. It was like cover points or corner points or something, but they were specifically designed where the player would, or sorry, the enemy would put his back up against the pillar, and then when the player rounded the pillar, they would come out and try to smack the player, and that's what you're seeing here. But the real point I'm really making here is the actual work by the mission designer was, of course, building the gray box of the space and coming up with this concept of what I described with the two guys and the guy that runs to the back room. But the work of how the AI behaved was all achieved through placement of these AI points. And that's kind of it. Like there's some scripts that we called, and I'm trying to remember exactly how that worked, but the majority of the logic that the AI that controlled AI behavior was done with these AI points. Oh, and also I did all the voices for the bad guys in this first mission. So yeah, maybe sometime in the future I can do a video about that sort of process or that experience, because there's some funny stories with doing the voice work for the bad guys in Condemned. Actually, all the bad guys in Condemned are different Monolith developers. So anyway, right. So then let's compare that to the way that we would build and script Halo encounters. So the Shredded Nerd does a great job in his video of these are shots from the video itself, but he does a great job of sort of breaking down like how a lot of these tools worked. You can see right off the bat a lot of firing points here compared to the, say, whatever it was that was in the Condemned encounter. There was a handful of firing points. I mean, we would lay down quite a bit, but nothing compared to the amount of, sorry, I'm saying firing points again, AI points. Let's just call them AI points. There's just so many more AI points that would have to be placed in Halo encounters because the scale of the encounters it was just so much bigger. All of the logic in the Monolith games was contained primarily in the AI points themselves, where we didn't really. That's not at all how it worked here in Halo. Instead, you can see this objective. I'm gonna play the video here. This task window, the AI objective window, and these tasks that you're seeing here on your screen. This is how we drove all the logic in the Halo games, and it was a very different approach. And again, I'm going to use the term. It was a macro approach, meaning you built rules and structure that were at a very, very high level macro sort of scale, and then these squads respond in and they sort of filtered in to these tasks. I think the best way I can describe it is one of those old school coin counting machines that we had in the US. I don't know if you're familiar with these things. The idea is that the way it would sort the coins is through the size of the coins. Okay. And this was very similar. The AI objective, the way the AI objective system worked is you would place a lot of squads, and then based on the restrictions defined by the min max uh, or other parameters within the AI objective window, they would just filter naturally into these tasks. And then, of course, if we'd set it up so that if you killed a couple or two or three of the AI, that would disable that task, and they would be forced to move to a different task, which usually would be a drop back. So you got this, you sort of got this uh, sense of progression as you killed enemies. So hopefully you can better understand what I was trying to communicate here in this part of the video about the core differences between scripting missions at Monolith on Condemned versus the Halo games. And if there's anything else that you want me to clarify, please drop a comment, and I'll do my best to clarify any questions or answer any questions that you may have on this. Okay, let's move on to the next segment here.
It basically spawns a bunch of AI within an area facing a direction.
At least in the latter Bungie games, everything was squad based. Those squads communicated with each other and operated as true squads, groups of AI, and that's something that I've leveraged in my AI.
So here I talk about how Halo's AI was all squad based. Every AI was spawned to the game as a squad, even single AI. Squads were core to how the AI worked. And then I go on to mention how in the current game I'm building, the Razorform, I leverage this approach. I'll probably do a separate video on how I built the AI systems in the Razorform using basic features provided by the Unreal Engine, but I'll save that for a future video. All right, moving right along here.
The mount, or ones which reduce it on Nightfall.
The very early versions of, say, the Space Fighter, before we had the Saber, it was I took a Banshee and I used the tag editor Gorilla, or was it Bonobo, one of the two. And I adjusted the parameters to just, I can't remember if I adjusted the gravity of the vehicle or what, but I sort of set something up that made it more like a Space Fighter, and then I asked Marcus for a space skybox, and then put some capital ships in there, and was able to get something that kind of felt like a X-Wing fighter or whatever.
So here I'm talking about the tag editor that we used for Halo. It was originally called Gorilla, and then at some point the engineers rewrote it and renamed it to Bonobo. I can't remember when that happened or which one I was using in this story here that I'm talking about, but um, yeah, the tag editor, so I think as the Shredded Nerd describes, it was just a way, it was one of our tools that we could adjust the parameters of different objects in the game. Basically, you could adjust the fire rate of weapons, and you could adjust how enemies behave. That you could make a whole bunch of very fast changes, and it was really designed, I guess. It's designed to just build games, help to make building games faster. But we could also use it, or I used it quite a bit in the early pre-production phase of Reach, and we used it, or I used it to come up with new scenarios or new vehicles and prototype new ideas. But instead of having to go to engineering and ask for a bunch of changes that would take time and take resources, I could just go directly into the tag editor and make adjustments that way. And then if you go to my website here, this is my portfolio website. I will put a link to this in the description. But if you go to my website, and then these are most of the games I've worked on in my career. But if you scroll down to Halo Reach, there's a link right here that links to this PAX panel we did. It looks like in 2010. And if you fast forward to the 4:35 mark in the video, you can see this little segment. It's actually a cool little video. This is something that I describe it in the YouTube itself, but this was a video that we built just for internal consumption, or to show internally. It was to show the different features we were planning on shipping and reach. In other words, the prototypes we did, we were trying to just get the team, the rest of the Halo Reach team, or Bungie in general, to get excited about what we were working on or what the game was going to eventually be. And so we built these prototypes, and then we sort of built this compilation video of all these cool things. And it's not meant to be to look like a final product. Of course, it's meant to, you have to sort of, use your imagination a little bit, but it gives you a general idea about what we wanted Reach to be, and it's pretty cool. So you can head over to my portfolio, and there's a link right there, partway down. Okay, and then let's look at the last segment here.
I think most modern games that try to achieve something like Halo, it's probably true. They probably get caught up in the Hollywood envy, and they're trying to achieve these cinematic moments, and they think the best way to do that is to do more direct scripting. Halo's a sort of an epic, space opera, basically. It's a game that could easily fall into the Hollywood envy bucket if it were to be remade. I think a lot of people look at Halo, maybe a lot of, let's say, business people or the people with the money look at something like Halo, and the first thing they see is, oh, it's like, it's like Star Wars. It's like a blockbuster Hollywood production, in video game form. And so I think it's easy I think there is a trap, a pitfall where Halo, one of the great things about Halo is it did have this solid AI sandbox. Time you play it, you engage one squad and it knocks them into this task. Well, the second time you play it, you might engage a different squad first, and then that squad would move to that task. So the end result is that the encounter would play out different each time. But it wasn't like we were hard scripting what those outcomes were. We were just setting up a series of constraints, and then the AI squads were responding to those constraints.
All right, I guess that's mostly clear. Yeah, I say that we set up, as designers, we set up constraints, and then the AI squads were responding or responded to those constraints, and that's what I say at the very end there, and it kind of cuts out a little bit, but hopefully that makes sense, and this is something that I spoke to earlier in the video, when describing like how we used the AI objective tool. So that hopefully covers most of the problematic voice issues from the video. Again, if you want me to clarify anything, or have any other questions, just post a comment, and I'll do my best to answer. This is actually my first YouTube video, so hopefully you found it interesting. I've been meaning to expand my YouTube channel with insight into my experience working in the game industry. I've worked on some classic AAA games. I've had experience working on some really bad games. I've worked for the US military. That was interesting and full of its own crazy stories.
Mission complete.
And for the last 8 years, I've been making indie games. So there's lots of stuff to talk about. Let me know if there's anything that you'd like to hear more about. I'm currently getting ready to release a public demo of my latest game, the Razorform. So I'll be making some content on that soon. So yeah, drop me a comment, subscribe, all that, and I'll see you next time.